Outline for Part 3, Aftermath of the Escape. The Perseus and Perseverance have narrowly escaped Draxus 3, but both ships are still heavily damaged from their previous battle. Their systems are barely holding together, and morale is low. Ryland and Lira reflect on their close encounter with the Sithari commander and the growing threat that's now actively hunting them. Desperate measures. They need to find a new place to hide and complete repairs. The nearest option is a small, hidden asteroid field known as the Black Scar, notorious for being dangerous to navigate but also a great place to lay low. Tension grows between the crews as the two captains try to keep them calm while figuring out their next move. Growing tension. Ryland begins to question his decision-making, feeling the weight of their survival on his shoulders. Lira, ever the fighter, pushes for a more aggressive approach, suggesting they go on the offensive against the Sithari instead of running. The two captains clash as they debate whether to fight back or stick to survival and regroup. Climax. As they argue, the ships are suddenly attacked by a stealth Sithari scout ship, which had been tracking them since Draxus 3. The fight forces both captains to work together once again to avoid destruction. Resolution. The humans defeat the scout, but not without suffering more damage. Their victory, however, gives Ryland the courage to start taking more risks, realizing that following the book may no longer be enough. Part 3 ends with the two captains deciding that humanity has to start taking the fight to the Sithari, even if it means abandoning everything they thought they knew about war. The stars returned to their familiar pinpricks of light as the Perseus dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Captain Ryland Pierce stood on the bridge, his eyes scanning the tactical display. The ship's systems were still struggling, every hum of the engines sounding more like a groan, but they were alive. "Captain, we've cleared Draxus," Lieutenant Nova Kane said from her station, her fingers flying across the console. No sign of pursuit. Ryland exhaled slowly, feeling the weight lift from his chest, but only slightly. They had escaped, for now, but Draxus 3 had been a wake-up call. The Sithari were closing in, and every skirmish left their ships more vulnerable. The Perseverance was in worse shape than his own ship, and Lira Maddox's crew had suffered heavy losses in the last engagement. "Get me Lira," Ryland ordered. A moment later, the comms crackled to life, and Lyra's face appeared on the screen. She looked as exhausted as he felt, her hair disheveled, her eyes hard with determination. "We made it," Lira said, her voice flat, "but we can't keep running like this, Ryland, not much longer." Ryland leaned against the console, his jaw clenched. "I know, but what choice do we have? The Sithari are hunting us, and we're barely holding together. If we don't find somewhere to regroup, we'll be sitting ducks," Lira finished, her eyes narrowing. "I'm not saying we don't need repairs, but we can't just keep hiding. The Sithari won't stop, you know that as well as I do." Ryland ran a hand through his hair, the tension in his body building with each passing second. Lira was right, but so was he. They couldn't fight in their current condition. They needed a safe place to repair, and fast. "There's an asteroid field nearby," Ryland said, pulling up the star charts on the display. "The Black Scar. It's dangerous, but it's remote. We can hide there while we get the ships back online." Lira studied the chart for a moment, her lips pressed into a thin line. "The Black Scar? You realize that place is a death trap, right? Pirates, radiation pockets, asteroid storms." "Yeah," Ryland replied, his voice low, "but it's our best shot. The Sithari won't expect us to hide there, and we're out of options." Lyra's face softened, just for a moment. She leaned back in her chair, exhaling through her nose. "All right, we'll make for the Black Scar, but once we're back on our feet, we need to stop running. Ryland, we need to start fighting." Ryland met her gaze, his stomach twisting. "We'll cross that bridge when we get there." The Black Scar lived up to its name. The asteroid field was a sprawling labyrinth of jagged rocks and space debris, swirling through the darkness like a storm frozen in time. The Perseus and Perseverance entered the field slowly, the ship's navigation systems struggling to map the erratic movement of the asteroids. "Careful," Ryland said, his voice tense. "One wrong move, and we're done." Nova guided the ship with precision, her hands steady on the controls. "We're almost at the center of the field. There's a cluster of stable asteroids where we can dock." Ryland nodded, his eyes never leaving the viewport. The Black Scar was a known hideout for smugglers and pirates, but there were places deep within the field where even the most dangerous criminals wouldn't venture. If they could find a safe spot, they might be able to repair without interference. As the ships finally reached the cluster of asteroids, Ryland felt a flicker of hope. They had made it. For now, at least. Prepare for docking, Ryland ordered, and get Dax to start those repairs. Hours passed as the crews worked tirelessly to repair the damage to both ships. The Perseus engines needed a full overhaul, and the shield generators on the Perseverance were barely functional. The sound of welding torches and hydraulic drills echoed through the docking bay as Dax and his team scrambled to patch things up. But the tension in the air was palpable. Ryland stood at the edge of the bay, watching as Lira approached him. She wiped the sweat from her brow, her expression unreadable. "We're sitting ducks out here," she said quietly, "even in this hellhole." Ryland crossed his arms, his gaze drifting to the massive asteroids floating around them. "We won't be here long, just enough to get the ships operational." Lira stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. "And then what? What's the plan, Ryland? Keep running? Keep hiding until the Sithari catch us and rip us apart?" Ryland's jaw tightened. "I don't know, but we're not ready for a full-on fight. Lira, we're barely holding together as it is." Lira's expression hardened. "We'll never be ready if we keep playing defense. This war isn't going to be won by following the book. We need to hit them. We need to go on the offensive." Ryland met her gaze, the weight of her words sinking in. She wasn't wrong. The Sithari wouldn't stop until humanity was crushed, but the thought of going on the offensive, of abandoning everything they had been trained to do, it felt like a betrayal of the very principles that had kept them alive. "I need time," Ryland said finally, his voice quiet. "I need to think." Lira exhaled through her nose, shaking her head. "We don't have time, Ryland, not anymore." Before Ryland could respond, a loud alarm blared through the docking bay. The sound sent a jolt of adrenaline through his veins. "Captain," Nova's voice crackled through the comms. "We've detected a cloaked ship, Sithari Scout, incoming fast." Ryland's blood ran cold. "Get everyone back on board. Prepare for combat." The Sithari Scout ship emerged from the shadows, its sleek, angular design glinting in the dim light of the asteroid field. Energy blasts streaked through the void as it opened fire on the human ships, its weapons punching through the sparse atmosphere like bolts of lightning. "Shields up," Ryland shouted as he sprinted back to the bridge. The Perseus groaned under the strain as the scout ship's weapons slammed into its weakened shields. On the tactical display, the Sithari ship darted through the asteroids with terrifying speed, outmaneuvering their larger, slower vessels. "We can't keep up with it," Nova shouted over the alarms. "Our systems are still down." Ryland gritted his teeth, his mind racing. They were outgunned and outmatched. If they didn't do something fast, they were dead. "Lira, are you seeing this?" Ryland barked into the comms. Lyra's voice came through, tense but controlled. "Yeah, we're pinned down. What's the plan?" Ryland stared at the tactical display, his thoughts spinning. The asteroids. The Sithari Scout was using them as cover, but they could use them too. "Nova, fire a spread of torpedoes into the asteroid field," Ryland ordered. "We'll use the debris to block their line of sight." Nova hesitated for a split second, then nodded. "Aye, Captain." The torpedoes launched from the Perseus, streaking through the void before slamming into the nearest asteroids. The explosions sent massive chunks of rock spiraling through space, creating a cloud of debris that obscured the Sithari ship's sensors. "They're blinded," Nova shouted. "We've got a window." "Target their engines," Ryland said, his voice steady. "Let's take them down." The Perseus and Perseverance opened fire, their weapons cutting through the chaos of the asteroid field. The Sithari Scout tried to dodge, but its movements were erratic, hindered by the debris. A volley of energy blasts slammed into its engines, sending it spinning out of control. "We've got them," Lyra's voice crackled through the comms. "Finish them off." Ryland nodded, watching as the final shot struck the Sithari ship, ripping it apart in a blaze of fire and debris. The scout ship exploded, its wreckage scattering through the asteroid field. For a moment, the bridge was silent. Then, slowly, Ryland exhaled. "We did it," Nova said, her voice filled with disbelief. Ryland sank into his chair, the weight of the battle finally hitting him. They had survived, but just barely, and this was only a scout ship. The real fight was still out there, waiting for them. "Lira," Ryland said, his voice tired but resolute, "you're right, we can't keep running. It's time to fight back." Lyra's voice came through the comms, firm and unwavering. "Glad you finally see it, Ryland. Let's make sure the Sithari know we're not done yet."